Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are in the world today, you're on the new way. Here on, well, we're not on steampunk radio anymore. We're on YouTube and maybe BitChute and maybe several other platforms. You never know where you might find us. Today, I've got a guest. We'll call him Madness. And he is an educator from somewhere in Canada, and I've always been an educator, but we're going to talk about education in a completely different way, a new way, as you know, like I like to do. All right, so let me bring Madness into the scope. Hey, Madness, welcome to the new way. How are you today? And I have no audio.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. And for purposes of our conversation here, we can just Mike or Michael is fine for us. Thank you.
Michael. Okay,
Thank you
you
for the
can call
introduction,
me
though.
Lenny as opposed to Doc, but it
hmm
doesn't matter at all how we nominate each other.
we have shorthand that the audience doesn't need to be privy to. Um, yeah.
So why don't you give the audience a elevator conversation of who you are and what brings you here?
Well, as introduced, I am Madness. The moniker was given to me, and I hope not to wear it very long, but it's kind of shorthand for the let's call it the mess we've made here in terms of education, and how we raise the next generations every time we do this. And again, shorthand for people who know, there'll be breadcrumbs, but Lenny and I are just going to speak as people here. And yeah, so obviously, where to start? The education system's uh, not working as efficacious as it could be.
I consider it kind of hopeless, but one of the things I've been
I don't
interested
believe in
in,
that, Lenny.
no, the current system is hopeless, not the fact that education exists. It's just that to me, I'd rather involve students in a live action role play to learn as opposed to standing in front of them and giving them a lecture.
Life is kind of like that, as we know. We have, well, yes, we have a different group that we talk through, and we have shorthand for. But for here, like literally, it's that's it. Like I mean, we are in a LARP, right?
Absolutely. And each person really is the lead character in their own LARP, and we get to play the supporting cast in each other's LARP.
I'm here. I'm here with you. Yeah, I know. I'm just smiling because I know that some people in the audience will understand this. So to spell it out, essentially, what we want to talk about here is how we can, indoctrination is a bad word, right, Lenny? And that's what we're doing. We're indoctrinating. Well, not a bad word. It's just a misuse, but that's what we're doing to children at this point, right?
I think that there's no such thing as a bad word. It's the context of the word that could be bad. But our,
Connotations, if we will.
our definitions of words differ greatly depending on how we were trained. And people today go off at the slightest provocation, which I consider calling a buzzword, because they really do not understand what you're talking about, but they've got an idea that something you said is going to make them angry. And so, poof, they're off.
It's so okay. You and I probably should define for the audience. We are of two different schools of thought, perhaps, or two different streams in the braid, as you would eloquently say. But so can you define your, not define necessarily, but loosely describe your stream of the braid, please? Like in terms of just because me and you have shorthand that people do not understand here. And if we're going to take this time, let's take this time. I'm the dumb student here, right? I'm the dunce.
Well, so to speak, if you want to assign yourself that role, everyone else will agree with you.
Understood, sir.
I'm a scientist by training. My background is chemistry, but my true science is called alchemy. And I believe alchemy is a single science that makes sense of all the divisions of science. But science is an ugly word ever since Dr. Fauci decided that he was the science. And chemistry works because it's a construct that you can walk into a laboratory, mix chemicals, and get a product that you can identify as the target of what you're seeking.
I would be remiss if we don't throw in an I am the science here, but yeah. I don't have that kind of pride, but go on.
No, you're not a scientist, are you? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, yes, I'm not a hard scientist. You're absolutely correct. I know enough to know enough that I don't know enough. I won't tell the true story because my mom probably is listening, but I've had a checkered past, let's say, to put it mildly. But traditionally, like academically, I went for a double major in philosophy and psychology, and I got I didn't declare them because that cost money that I didn't have, but I got probably, I don't know, a handful of minors in linguistics, archaeology, anthropology, classics, and then I actually did play, my violin's back there somewhere or whatever, but I actually did play violin in university as well. As I said, Lenny, I'm probably starting a bunch of fights here, right? I think I'm good here, but yeah, people are watching. Anyways. So that's the short end. Two majors, one in philosophy, one in psychology, and then a handful of the usual suspects. There's also I might as well go for gold here. My favorite author is R. Scott Baker. I'm madness everywhere on the internet, and I have been for like 17 years, good or bad. R. Scott Baker is a science fiction fantasy author who wrote a book or set of books called The Second Apocalypse, which for anyone nodding along is actually a joke about apocalypsis, the second revelation. And I'm not trying to proselytize here. We're talking about education here, but you asked me for a version of it, and I feel since I've planted the Swazon standard here, people might as well know the full truth, whatever. That's the story, and I am interested in how we can raise warrior ninja people, because we could be doing 1,000 times better than we are right now, obviously, and structuring that
1,000 times worse.
Yeah, well, we're already doing worse. We're already doing worse, Lenny. Like worse is off the menu here, right? I'm on an upward trend. We're going up, but elucidating that, describing that, and finding people, as from our private works and stuff, bringing people together to do this task is, I've got the Blues Brothers poster on my wall, or whatever. I don't even necessarily believe in this stuff, but on a mission from God, and I'm being dragged kicking and screaming, so apparently the rest of us are coming along.
Well, you're not wearing the right suit to be Jake and Elwood's brother.
I'm just a pauper, Lenny. I'm just a pauper, all right?
How do you see psychology and philosophy as being the foundation for education as you're going to bring it to
it was an accident, and people probably right now are looking up my alma mater and stuff, but Lakehead has one of the premier teaching colleges in Canada as well, so there was a lot of overlap there. I was privileged enough, and again, I apologize, all my mentors that might come up in this conversation, that they're connected or associated with me by any way, but I was privileged to have some mentors from those disciplinary tracks, including the teaching college, and And I stumbled. I mean, I went for psychology and philosophy, Lenny, honestly, to figure myself out. Yeah,
Did you
and I mean, it
succeed?
didn't work, by the way. It didn't take, but
Okay. To I seem to figure that I'm a lifelong learner, and anybody who I converse with has the ability to inform me of things that I didn't know because they come from a different perspective, and I can only uniquely come from my own perspective, but I can
Mhm.
integrate thoughts of others into the methodology that I use.
Well,
So
you eloquently called it braiding the coaxial cable before, right? Which I think will land for some people.
well, that has to do with my opinion on time, but we're talking about education. And
Education,
while
yes.
education takes time, I'm not going to go down the deep end on time right now because we could spend hours on that.
No, we're talking about alchemy and transmuting. You know, again, we're literally transmuting your life into education, right? And we're talking about how that process can unfold a little more efficaciously or whatever, right?
Perhaps we should back up. What do
Yes,
you
please.
feel is an ideal classroom? How would you build to have students learn what you're saying to them?
Well, they're not necessarily going to listen to me. You know, I happen to, as you know, have a number of very intelligent, an intelligent supporting class, let's say. No, this is what we're envisioning, and this is what we're here to talk about, and we're going to plant some seeds in any listeners, either live or later. But no, this is the carpentry task that we're at here, isn't it, Lenny? And so right now, you know, we're in the spaghetti shotgun zone, essentially, especially you and I, but certainly for anyone listening, and for all the thoughts that carry on from here. You know what? Okay, well, okay. Let me do this since we're doing this live. I've been working on a number of things for a number of years. I used to have a whiteboard with them on, but they're up here or whatever. But so obviously, like step one, meditation, right? And I know you want to get to like the physical space, but let's do the work first here in terms of uh, you know, what can be as opposed to what we will make.
So, when you say
Um,
meditation, do you mean quieting your mind?
I simply do just I mean there's I used to have a meditation Bible. There's hundreds of different styles of it. Meditation for me, I just simply focus on breath work. A friend of ours had eloquently described that the other night. But I feel like meditation, however, whatever form that you find it in. And The Creative Act by Rick Rubin is a great book for this. But whatever form you find meditation in is a cognitive force multiplier, as far as I'm concerned. So, I mean, nothing. Oh, I mean, I might regret these words, but the premise is that nothing gets worse with meditation, right? I
I
mean,
don't know. I I
depending how you
have,
use it, depending on how you use it, obviously. But
I have a breathing technique that I use to calm myself down that I call Fibonacci breathing. And if I take two adjacent numbers in the Fibonacci scale, I can breathe in at, say, 8 and breathe out at 5. And by taking 3 inhales at 8, counting to 8, and then exhaling, counting to 5, I can immediately shift my coordinates back into an understanding of calmness and be ready to listen. Is that what you're talking about for meditation?
I'm doing it right now, Lenny. And I apologize too for any of the viewers. I'm partially, well, probably on the spectrum as anyone is, but I hear like I listen. I actively listen with my ears as much as possible, especially during the deep moments. Because again, for anyone who watches this, you know, now or in the future, it's hard work to digest or transmute alchemically this kind of knowledge. So I'm doing my best to keep up with Lenny. So I apologize to people who are trying to keep up with me. But yes, that's what we're talking about, Lenny. Yeah, and that task or that ability, as far as I've seen evidence of, carries forward into anything that's why I call it a force multiplier. However you find it, it carries forward to anything you want to learn, right? Like learning to learn is kind of what we're structuring here, and me could stop laughing. Go on. Sorry, dog time.
Well, we are taking on a number of listeners through the YouTube channel, and we have a full room here in the StreamYard. So I think we're doing fairly well. Now that
Let's
we've
not
had
waste
our
our time
meditation,
then.
where do we go next after meditation? What's your proper
Well,
learning environment? Do you
let's go through this. Well,
Okay.
hold on, Lane. If I am the interviewee here, let's go through this because I've been working a long time on this, and if I'm gonna announce this nonsense, I might as well do it properly. So from meditation, well, what's your next guess? Because I think you can probably take a stab in the right direction.
I'm not playing guessing
Okay,
games. Why don't you go?
Martial, dance, or martial art or something. Yeah, well, I've got another step in there, but understanding this form, right?
So you're
it is the
loosening
greatest
yourself
lie of
up
all.
physically?
Pardon?
You're physically loosening your body up to get on the same page as your mind?
I did most of this by accident. I'm just talking about what works in multiplication here or whatever. But so let's start here. Like I played hacky sack. I was in martial arts younger. Yes, mom, I understand. I was in martial arts when I was younger. We just hacky sack, longboard. I've been longboarding, for how many years, as many people know. But martial art or dance or getting, Tim Ferriss has a great quote about, getting out of your mind and into your body or whatever, when you're in duress or under duress. And Tim Ferriss is also a Stoic. And hi, Tim. I'm sorry for all this, but anyways, so essentially, yeah, like getting into this form, right? The greatest lie we've been sold is that you've got one dominant hand, you have one language, you have, I don't know, one ideology, right? Like, I'm sorry for being verbose, Lenny. I apologize, but obviously you can see I'm animated about these things.
Well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build the learning environment so that we can express ourselves to the students and have them comprehend what they're supposed to learn or what they desire to learn by taking the course that we're teaching.
Well, and as you
So,
said, we can have assembled like Hogwarts teachers for that, right?
absolutely. Hogwarts is an excellent model because there you get 4 different perspectives that can be taught from about the same topic. So now that we've had our meditation and we've loosened up with our martial arts, where do we go from there?
Well, I encourage. I did it by accident. I broke longboarding. I broke my left thumb like clean off. I am right-handed by birth, but I broke my left hand clean off, and I thought to myself, what if this had been my dominant hand, which I've done as well since then. Well, be careful with the world. The world will slap you, everyone. But anyways, so after I was doing physio, I found that the best form of physio would just to become functionally ambidextrous. So I actually went through university taking notes with my left hand as well. I have pen and a pad or pencil and a pad right here. But yeah, I brushed my teeth. I'm not going to bring up the vulgar stuff, but yeah, like just become functionally like I've helped others with this as well, but we're a quadrupus. Like, look at examples. Like and then we'll get back to this, but I studied many examples about this in university and stuff, and many of my mentors are probably nodding along and hoping that I'm proselytizing this stuff, but essentially, like you see people eat with their feet or something. Like we see examples of human excellence everywhere. And every single one of us is capable of that in some way, shape, or form, right? Obviously, play to your strengths, but really, like nothing. Well, not that nothing's stopping us. Like I like Stephen Pressfield is back here somewhere, but the war of art. There's resistance in our lives and stuff. But there's absolutely nothing stopping us from. And this is what we're doing here in real time. Obviously, Lenny, you understand that. But yeah, carry the ball, please. Shut Up
So
Madness is probably coming up soon.
let's get to the foundation of what education should be about. It should be student driven, not teacher driven, but self selected on the part of the student. But if I have a classroom with students of a vast number of ages, one of the things I want to do is I want to have the person who is speaking to them be a master of their subject matter.
Can I raise a hand here, Lenny? Because you just kind of nailed it, and I want to put a fine point on it.
Okay.
We have a shortage of students, not a shortage of teachers.
I consider us to all be lifelong students of every endeavor. And the fact that we sometimes get asked to be in the role of teacher means that we have an area of expertise that is worth other people learning. But they can't learn if they're not prepared to learn. And the fundamentals of learning take place at every age. And so if I have a classroom, I want to break the classroom into maybe 3 younger students with an older student, so that at times when the person who is the expert says something, if it's not understood, the questions can be asked right there at the table, so that the immediate feedback loop is established. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, of course. And I'm going to do that for the audience. But and unschooling, someone just brought up, that's a great one as well. No, you're talking about a cohort. The classroom cohort is flawed from jump, right? There's no way. I could put you in a classroom of 30 students or something, and you'll never get anywhere, right? Like the whole cohort is flawed from jump. And as you said about students self-selecting, we're making up things right as we go along. So I hope someone's taking notes, because it's not me. I've got to be present here with Lenny or whatever. It's like that's exactly what you're talking about. Like students need to be able to self-select their mentors, right? Another book, it's not on here, but Robert Greene's Mastery is one of my favorite books, whatever. And I have been, I brought up Baker before. I have been privileged enough to not only meet my idols, but not then be disappointed. I have a whole list of professors that I can thank. I should actually give some shout outs to some of them, but they're all at my alma mater. And I don't want to waste the audience's time. But as you said, Lenny, like this is the cohort size is flawed. And you and I have talked about this privately, but we can elucidate it for the audience here.
How do you establish context with your students?
Are you asking, or do you want me to guess?
I'm asking. No,
okay.
I'm asking. If you're teaching something.
I think it's a flawed question. No, hold on, pause. This is, and I'm glad we're reevaluating this here. So let's all take a moment and pause. But this is great. You're asking the wrong question. If teachers plant their flag, then the students will self-select. So if we had, and we'll get to like a physical proposition here or whatever, but if there was just a monastery with a bunch of teachers, which there are, obviously there's plenty of examples, the students will come. Our trick here, and what we're going to work to like the dimensions of everything as well. We're going to build this together. I already know what's happening, but the trick is not the trick. That's not a bad word, but just a flawed word. How do we get people to look up from their phones? How do we get people to look up from their screens or whatever? Like, I mean, this is a tool, obviously, right? Or Dr. Andy Crouch, it's down here somewhere, the life we're looking for, or whatever, right? Or Stolen Focus by Johann Harari, or whatever, right? Where we're wrestling with the and Baker, if anyone wants to go on a deep dive, and I apologize for that if they take my recommendation, but we're having this conversation with technology, right? and how that, like, learning is constant, like you said. I mean, but again, we don't have to invent bad examples, right? Everyone's got a public school around the corner. Maybe you get to Montessori or Waldorf or something, right? But we're in drafting area.
I think that the concept of school being the place where you learn is a horrid concept, that we need to be able to learn from any situation. And the model that I worked within 20 years ago was set in a zoo as opposed to the school. And we
Animal
had a
Farm.
program that was involved in teaching about macroinvertebrates, little bugs that are in the streams everywhere, and how you could tell things like water quality from which population of bugs was in the stream.
Mm-hmm.
So we asked students between 7th and 9th grade to self-select themselves, and we put some requirements. They had to be able to handle math, and they had to be able to be willing to give up 5 Saturdays, 4 hours a day to come to additional learning. But the zoo was a carrot.
My mom's laughing right now. She's thinking about juku, the Japanese concept of like before and after school. It was like homework on homework.
Well, this wasn't so much homework as it was an opportunity to learn something different. And by stepping away and learning this, we actually spent the time not only showing pictures of how to identify the bugs, but also how to set up and take a D-net and go out into a stream and physically catch bugs, and the protocol for how much area you had to cover in order to get a valid sample, and then how to work the equipment in the laboratory so that you could pick the bugs out of the detritus and then identify them.
Lenny, can I pause for a second? Can you I'm having a hard time. No, I'm not having a hard time keeping up. I was going to bring up E.O. Wilson, but for the audience, and since we have an audience, can you unpack that just a little bit more basic for me?
Yeah. If you take the time to explain what you're talking about and allow the students to get hands-on to learn what they're supposed to do and get out into the world and experience the doing of it, by the time they have learned the topic, they've got something useful that they can do with the area of approach and go out and build from there. Mm-hmm. But if they don't understand the fundamentals of how to use the equipment, anybody can go into the stream and collect bugs. But if you want valid data, you have to follow the scientific protocol. And in order to follow the scientific protocol, you have to have an idea of what you're doing. So the idea is to hands-on be doing as opposed to be listening.
Hold on, pause. The scientific method, right? When you called me not a scientist earlier, but let's explain the real scientific method, not just the one that's taught in schools.
You mean the idea that you should observe something and come up with a hypothesis and develop arguments that either support or knock down your hypothesis?
Yes,
Lenny. And when you fully understand whether what you suggest is true or not, you can use the assembled data to present your argument. Is that what you were intending?
Well, again, I'm transmuting for the audience here, so yes, please keep going.
Well, I don't know that the audience actually needs the translation, but the idea is that if you're physically able to be the lead in a LARP or the supporting role, that you learn something to do, and the actions of doing it are what you learn from. if you're going to do something the first time you do it, you have either it works out perfectly and better than you expect, or it's a total disaster. No matter which way it goes, the second time you do something, if it was a total disaster, it could be a total disaster again, or it could work very well. If it worked very well the first time, it could work very well again, or it can be a total disaster. And you don't know till you've gone through it the second time, but the second time going through it is not like the first time going through it.
Can
And
I,
so the learning experience is different.
Since I am here, I'll give another version of this. So there's a learning curve, right? And I was very disappointed to learn. I'm sorry, Dr. Heyman. But I was very disappointed to learn that learning comes down to memory and motivation and emotion. Not disappointed. That's the wrong way to put it. But what Lenny is describing in other language is so the learning curve, right, Lenny?
Okay.
Or the forgetting curve, I believe it's called, the forgetting curve. I'm sorry, Dr. Heyman. I'm going to
say it.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sure Samuel is out there finding links for me or whatever, but the learning curve is it's basically a retention curve. So when it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a martial habit, like something that you do with your body, and I use martial to mean like just movement and form, like dance is a martial art. Thoughts or habits, physical movement or habits, and the retention curve or the forgetting curve is this terrifying slope because we don't actually engender strengthening this and changing the graphic or whatever. But essentially, if anyone listening to this right now, you'll remember this conversation for, I don't know, a couple of days, hours, it doesn't matter. Or if the scientist I'm talking about who is responsible for this, and I'm not going to waste my time or the cognition right now actually looking it up because that will disrupt our flow here. But essentially, he made up random syllables and quizzed himself. Yes, thank you, Ebbinghaus. Thank you. Yes, he made up random syllables for himself, and he would try and remember them and then forget them essentially, and then map the data points on that. But learning comes kind of down to that forgetting curve, and we can change that. It just it takes practice, and that's the next part of what we're going for here, I believe, is having a practice. I want to bring up the Creative Act by Rick Rubin again, but the idea of whatever you like, neurons that wire together fire together, right?
That's practice like doctors have a practice where they never get it right.
No. Practice like you and I talk about, like this is practice right now, a life practice. And this is when we come full circle here to the idea of a school or an idea of an institution or something, a monastery, I want to call it, or something. Ishul. And yes, stop laughing, guys. But if we're drafting Ishuls here, the idea is that it's a place where teachers are available to students who want to self-select. And then one of the last things we're going to talk about here is how can we engender more students who want to learn, obviously, right? Because the wanting to learn, that's the sweet spot as we are here, right? I mean, everyone else here, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening, future, for posterity or whatever. But this could just be me and Lenny, and I would be humbled to listen and learn, right? And self-selecting students, they're a dime a dozen at this point, right, Lenny?
I don't know. I have no problem with students selecting themselves when I have something that I'm willing to teach, but I don't teach out of my league. I try and keep things together. But we're talking about building the proper learning environment that cultivates the students' learning so they can take what they learn and apply it to something. And without the application, the learning doesn't really work, does it?
Can we you asked me my like kind of quote unquote steps since I'm playing interviewee here, but so we went meditation, a martial art or a dance or something, perhaps ambidexterity or using like where your limbs at, right? Learning to use your limbs. Multiple languages, cognitive fluidity is.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. If I'm teaching chemistry, why do I need multiple languages? No habla inglés.
But it's a good question, Lenny. It's a good question, and I understand where you're coming from, and I know this is going to be your channel forthcoming, and you're going to have plenty of amazing teachers follow after me, and again, I'm humbled to help be here at the start because I know where this is going, and it's going to be awesome. But so we're not throwing out STEM, right? We're not throwing out STEM.
Wait, what's
it's not even STEAM.
What's STEM?
Like science, technology, education, math. We're not throwing that out. That's all part of this. What we're trying to, we're again, like I said about force multipliers before. If you give me a child, like we've talked about a certain demographic or whatever, but if you give me a child from 5 to 11, let's say, or maybe probably earlier, and they're going to impress us 1,000-fold, and we start them, we break trauma, break pattern, but I teach them or any out of us, whatever. A school is offered for meditation, dance, martial art. Like again, just teachers of any kind of variety, masters that can help with mastery, and then we introduce them to STEM. We have no idea what kind of rocket ships and whatever we're like. I know everyone's got their different beliefs about this, but like we have no idea. We haven't even started yet in terms of the magic that we're capable of, in terms of let's do this part first and then unleash them on STEM or STEAM or something, right?
Wait, back up. What topic are you trying to teach? If you're teaching 5 to 11-year-olds, you're not teaching the same thing as if you're teaching high school students, are you?
I mean, this is just a draft. This is just a draft. And again, Montessori herself wanted to eventually get to the middle school and high school demographic, but no, what we're teaching here is how to learn. And that's what we're trying to bullet point here, right? And this is why it's so confusing for us, and I'm sure confusing for the audience. We're trying to build the blueprint for learning how to learn. And then, of course, bring in all the esoteric and exoteric stuff that we know about, right? That's it. That's what it comes down to. We're learning to learn here.
I think we're building an environment that enables learning, and the student's going to learn based on the student, not based on what we're teaching them.
Well, when you ask about what
material you're teaching has to be the fundamental purpose of having the course. So why would breathing and martial arts be pertinent to teaching somebody chemistry or collecting bugs?
Evidence shows that, and I'm coming from the academic background, but evidence shows or data shows that allows people to learn something like chemistry faster and more efficiently.
Okay.
Well, do you meditate?
At times.
Do you find it helps with your? I'm not. Me and you are just doing a dance here, but do you find that helps with your learning? Do you find that's enriched?
Not really. I find that when I need to meditate, it's because I don't have control of my personal emotions, and I need to calm myself down. And therefore, what I do is I start breathing, and I get my mind clear, and then I step back in the situation with a rational way of dealing with it. But I wouldn't. I once attended a meeting where two different sides of an argument had finally gotten to the point where they were ready to sit down. And the people who were in charge of running the show decided they wanted to start with meditation and kumbaya. And 45 minutes later, the people they were trying to reach all walked out because they were having their time wasted and not getting to the topic at hand, which was talking about issues.
For our purposes here, and we can get to the esoteric stuff if you want, but for our purposes here, and you haven't heard this from me before, I guess, but I'm literally just talking about ROT, like rote cognition. There is, I mean, I can throw you. People can look them up and stuff, but there's hundreds. Well, maybe not hundreds, but there's definitely a handful of studies that will show that meditators learn faster and they learn more efficiently than people who don't meditate. We can get. I'm just talking straight, like just cognition, Lenny. I know that we have our other
what rote cognition means in English terms that people can understand.
Well, you're getting an example of it, right? I'm talking to the audience, not you, obviously, right now. But I have been burdened, let's say, cursed, blessed. I'm not sure, but this doesn't stop. And it's basically rote cognition would mean how fast the brain can process information, which is ultimately, we can get very technical down to the wires here, Lenny, but I don't think that's what people are here for right now.
Are you talking about memorization?
Well, that's what I said. And again, Dr. Heyman, I apologize, but this is why I brought up, I was disappointed to learn that learning was all about, it was about memory, right? It's retention. That's why I brought up the forgetting curve before, right? It's about, and this is why I say it's a superpower, is that we can take that and then, apply it to, I don't like anything, religious practices, cooking, painting a picture, building a bridge, there's no place that meditation as a first principle, let's say, there's no place that it will not, help or encourage or expand it's exponential. Meditation is exponential. That's why I say it's a first principle, let's say. And everything else I mentioned, I also think are exponential in terms of then we can go back to chemistry and we can go back to physics whatever we want to apply it to.
So if you were building a curriculum, say for a middle school student, what topics would be in your curriculum?
Well, I've said a number of them so far. So obviously keep STEM or STEAM, whatever you want to do, the acronym, whatever, keep all that. But first we teach them how to learn before we let them self-select for what to learn. And the how to learn part is what me and you are dancing about here. The how to learn part is not yet established, and a curriculum for the how to learn part. So I've said meditation, I've said dance or martial art, ambidexterity if you want to do that. Certainly, and Mika, thank you. Yeah, certainly song or an acoustic instrument, some kind of relationship with music. Choir is another great example. These are all form building, right? When we talk about you want to build the church, well, this is it right here. It's how we build the vessel. And we're toddlers, Lenny. We're toddlers tripping over each other and ourselves. And I know I can feel it. I understand everyone. We're in the drafting stages of a curriculum, as you're asking. And when you ask for like a physical space, we don't even need to wait for that. That's going to be useful. But we're doing it right now. This is happening in real time. I'm surprised we have an audience of one, Lenny.
I don't think we're going to have very many middle school students watching this and having a clue as to what we're talking about.
You might be surprised. Samuel, Samuel, I apologize. We have audience members who are very young and who are listening. And again, this is another thing that I think you're worried about. Self-selecting students. Well, hold on.
17-year-old is going to learn different topics than an 8-year-old. And granted, they're supposed to have meditation to start off with. But how do you choose which topics are going to be presented to the student at which different age?
Well, we're in. I understand that. Again, there's a number of people listening who we will talk about at the fireside later, or whatever, or talk with. Talk with at the fireside later. But that's just up to our discretion. We're not there yet. We're just sparking the fire.
Okay, so you're building your learning environment. We've got meditation, we've got music, we've got dance. What else?
Languages I already brought up because for cognitive fluidity. I'm sure a number of our listeners speak more than one language. And anyone who will watch this for posterity definitely probably speaks more than one language. But there's, let's say, for example, there was a study done a number of years ago that if you think about, your budget in your second language, it actually allows you to make more fruitful economic decisions. That's an example of one, or an anecdote of one. Sorry, Dr. Bluta. But yes, essentially, language or multiple polyglots allows for a cognitive fluidity that can, again, bring insight to something like chemistry. I don't know why that is. I'm just based talk. I mean, Lenny, this happens once. There's going to be a lot of lovers and haters that find this. So I apologize to you for your inaugural video, but the work is just starting. But yeah, it adds to cognitive fluidity or engendering that, and we can talk in more spiritual terms, whatever. Our audience can listen in that way if they want. But essentially, just there's a quote, and someone can find it for me. But the mind is the only technology. I like to prefer the brain is the only technology, but we're not discontinuous from this place we find ourselves in. We teach our children, or we indoctrinate, quote unquote, to, and this is going to take us off rails. So let me stop if I need to, Lenny. But we have a system that teaches us to be discontinuous from ourselves, from our power. And not only are we trying to take the power back,
that happens when you spend a lot of time with your babies teaching them to walk and talk, and then from then on in, you spend the rest of your time saying to sit down and shut up.
But when you ask, like, when is too early, if we have self-selecting students and we create an environment, we're creating the circumstances or the context right now. I don't have the how we're going to paint the walls or what brick to use yet or whatever, but we'll get there. But what we're talking about is just getting to a place at all where there are teachers and masters and mentors, and then we'll work through I don't know, ask a child. Children are innocent. You tell me right now that I can't teach a child to meditate at 4 or 5 years old, and if they're not glued to their phone or something.
You can. Yeah. You can teach a child to count at 4 or 5 years old also.
Right. So Nancy Reagan, God rest her soul, whatever, but she kind of messed things up because she said no child left behind. And so then not retarded, but in the definition use of the word, slowed down. From then on, we slowed down the development of every single generation after that because, America, the world kind of takes their cues at the moment from America or whatever. But
no child left behind is actually no child gets ahead.
Exactly.
And
Thank you.
The idea of equality is nonsense because everybody's different. We don't need.
You've got me. You've got me. You've got it.
Equivalence. No, Nancy Reagan also came up with "Just Say No," which is a total ridiculous way.
Well, this goes back to Graham Hancock, cognitive sovereignty, right?
Well, now you're talking buzzwords. The idea is that from a young age, if you can introduce concepts differently, then students can put together their thoughts differently. And there's no one size fits all to education. So having an underpinning of philosophy is real important because a philosophy is to a person as a rudder is to a boat. If you don't have a philosophy, you don't know where you're going. And so other people can just put things in your pack that you don't need and you don't know about it. But I wouldn't ask an 8-year-old to be a philosopher.
My anecdote there was, why are we limiting them? I mean, we don't have to put any fences around them, essentially, right?
We do. I mean,
for what?
Borders. You have a total borderless. It's like an open mind. Open minds leak very badly. You don't want an open mind. You don't want a closed mind. You want to be able to take things in. And if you can hold two valid opinions of something that are in contrast with each other until it resolves itself, now you're doing well. But if you automatically have to make a decision, A or B, and you choose B, you never learn about A.
I don't think we pick and choose for them. You know, when someone's ready, they're ready. I don't think age matters.
I think that if you're going to wait until students are ready, you're never going to have a student. I don't believe in compelled education the way it's done, but I do believe in not wasting a student's time.
Compelled education is an oxymoron, Lenny.
Explain.
Well, think about what you just said. To compel a student to learn, that's what we're doing to our kids right now. It's not working. I promise you. Yeah, it's not working.
Exactly. It's not what you want to do at all, but yet it's the model for education. So we're trying to build a different environment and not compel the students. But once you have a material base that you need to teach, you got to teach that base, and you can't waste the students' time bringing in everything everywhere all at once.
This is why we're talking, Lenny. You're getting ahead of us, and I appreciate you for being there, but we're not there yet. We're in the, I'm speaking to the audience too, so I apologize, Lenny. I am speaking to the crowd as well, because I know that people are out there doing the work for us, whatever. But the question right now is enticing any generation. Doesn't matter what age you are. You can start learning at 40, 50, 60. You can start learning at 3, 4, 5, I think, whatever. But the enticement to learn. I mean, this goes back to, I don't want to. Well, I guess dropping archaics here is probably fruitful or whatever. But he was wearing that shirt the other day. Like, read a book. Read a book. Like let's just start there. Like where the starting conditions, like Dr. Stroink would say, are so basic right now. And you and I are both thinking, like, in multiple futures, as we said, we're trying to braid, but your considerations are ahead of us, which is great. We need that. But this is like, we're doing it real time right now, so I guess it doesn't matter what I say. But we need an assembly of teachers first, before, and then we need to figure out how to entice students at all, because it doesn't matter what age you are, but we have got people locked into 9-to-5 jobs. We have go to school at this time. Actually, I should throw out a drop to Xander Sherman, The Curiosity of School, I believe the book's called. Samuel, maybe you can do that for me. But it's like we are so we haven't even learned how to learn yet. Yeah, we're in the crawl stage, Lenny. I guess
just said something important.
Yes,
we haven't learned how to learn yet.
Yes,
that's what we're talking about, is process. What's
this
the
is
process of learning?
Right? Yeah,
and that's what we're trying to define, is how to allow the student to have a process that they learn by, knowing that each student learns differently. Some are kinetic learners, some are hands-on learners, some have to read it from a book. Others, if you put a book in front of them, now you've lost them.
Yeah, so, this actually brings up a good thing I want to address, if I may.
Okay.
So in one of our previous conversations the other night, and I know that we come from a different community as well. For this audience is just growing, right? We're going to have a lot of new people here and stuff, but not. And I tried to explain this in chat, but now we're doing it in a formal thing or whatever. But not everyone thinks, like, not everyone does have an internal monologue. Some literally, I've met people, I've worked with patients who, through brain damage or just like life or whatever, like they just being born that way or whatever. People thinking tactile, people thinking sound, people thinking color, right? And this is where we get to like synesthesia or whatever, which is probably wholly understood. But I guess Lenny, just you got to remember too, like we're drafting here in this conversation even for the audience in a way, and again, you're gonna have no shortage of interviewees coming, but yeah, we're doing this in real time. But you got the ball. Sorry, Lenny.
No, you lost me. You can't do that. You're
Okay,
talking and then you throw it to me.
So okay, hold on. I got you. So see what I'm. Oh, the book. Well, I'll do that later, Samuel. Let's not waste the audience time. See What I'm Saying is another good book. No, so we. Okay, here we go. Here, I got this. So we're learning how to experience. And I know that you're in like, okay, we need bricks and mortar, and we do need that. We have no shortage of teachers. And before we get to like, I mean, there's going to be physical buildings everywhere. If we can draft a curriculum or a pedagogy like Montessori or Waldorf or whatever, you can just be dropped in any socioculture or ideology. It doesn't matter. Hold on, let me get back to the thread here. Right now, the idea is how to entice people to like learn to experience. That's yeah. With that, I hope I can pass the ball back to you. Hopefully, but you know, we're trying to get people even in the mindset or the game or brain set or whatever you want to call it to learn or want to learn to experience.
Well, I think that you've summed up things rather nicely by pulling in a whole lot of theoretical education process that have been developed that if they were actually in use in schools might be a good thing for students. But well, and the way that teachers are given to manage a classroom right now doesn't allow them to teach. It allows them to speak to the lowest common denominator and lose all the students that actually are there to learn because they know that lowest common denominator, but it doesn't work that way. But I noticed that we have spent an hour, and I don't like to go much more than an hour on videos. So is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah. Closing words. So I hope I'm not giving away the secret here, Lenny, or whatever, but you are starting this inaugural channel, and you will be interviewing teachers from a lot of different practices, correct?
No, you've got the channel all wrong. This isn't about education. It's about a whole lot of things. But what I intend to do is clarify for the viewers what is wrong with the current processes and where we can go to make change so that we have a generation that comes up that's capable of leadership.
You didn't, nowhere in there did you think that you're assembling teachers, Lenny? You're not going to be
everyone's a teacher as everyone's a learner, but I'm not going to go out of my way to find teachers in the education system to teach. They're already closed-minded.
Lenny, when you asked where the school is, it's right here. You've literally started the school without even realizing it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. But it's a process, and it's a long process. So, Michael, thank you very much for your time.
Tattooed on my forehead. Yeah, finish story. I'm sorry, Lenny. I'm sorry to keep. Go on. Thank you, everyone.
I appreciate you being here very much. We'll continue the conversation at another time. And for all of you who are still here listening, thank you for your time and effort. I look forward to talking to you again sometime in the near future on The New Way.